Rome didn't wake up one morning, look at Christianity, and feel its heart soften. Rome didn't do soft, Rome did strategy. For centuries, Christianity was the kind of thing empires hate. On instinct, a stubborn minority that refused the public rituals of loyalty. Not because Christians were plotting coups, but because they wouldn't perform the empire's sacred theater. No incense to Caesar, no Caesar is Lord, no participation in civic religion when it crossed their conscience. To Rome, that wasn't just religion. That was a refusal to cooperate with the social glue that held the machine together. So Rome's relationship with Christians was simple at first. Tolerate them when they're quiet, punish them when they become visible, crush them when they refuse to bend. Persecution wasn't constant everywhere, but the message was consistent. The empire decides what counts as public loyalty, and yet Christianity kept growing anyway. It moved like water. Through the cracks of the empire, trade routes, port cities, households, prisons, army units, marketplaces. It didn't spread by conquering territory, it spread by becoming a community that outlived fear. It offered meaning, mutual support, and a new kind of identity that crossed class lines. It built networks, it cared for the sick, it buried the dead, it created a social structure you couldn't easily dissolve with a few arrests. Then, Rome's math changed. The 3rd century had battered the empire with instability, internal power struggles, and the constant churn of crisis. An empire under stress starts craving unity the way a drowning person craves air. It starts looking for a story strong enough to bind the population without endless force. And Christianity was becoming exactly that. A ready-made network with disciplined leaders and a moral narrative that could hold people together. Here's the first. Dark truth, so dark you should feel it in your core. Rome did not fall in love with Christianity. Rome realized Christianity was too big to ignore. Once a movement becomes a constituency, the state has two choices: keep fighting it forever, or bring it inside the palace. Constantine chose the palace. Constantine wasn't a bishop, he wasn't a monk. He wouldn't even be baptized until late in life. But he understood something more basic than theology. If this religion keeps growing, it will either compete with imperial authority or be fused into it. So the new strategy isn't eradication. The new strategy is management. Legalize it, favor it, then standardize it. Because an empire can tolerate a religion, but it cannot tolerate a religion that will not stop arguing in public. And Christianity was arguing not about small things, about the one question that decides what a religion even is. Who is Jesus? Is he God? Or is he like God? If that sounds abstract, understand the weapon hidden inside the question. Christians weren't just admiring Jesus. They worshipped him. They prayed to him. They called him Lord. In a world built on monotheism, worship belongs to God alone. So if Jesus is not truly God, then the church has been worshipping a creature. That's idolatry. And if Jesus is truly God, then monotheism has to stretch until it can hold a father and a son without snapping into two gods. That's why people fought. A priest named Arius becomes the name history remembers. But the dispute was bigger than him. Arius' side had a logic that felt clean and safe to many. God the Father is ultimate, unbegotten, the source of everything. The Son is begotten. If he is begotten, he has an origin. If he has an origin, there was when he was not, meaning the Son is created. Not ordinary, not small, the highest created being, the perfect agent through whom God made everything else, but still not equal to the Father. Divine-like, but not the divine itself. A lot of Christians found that appealing because it protected the idea of one God in the simplest way. The Father is God in the full sense, the Son is below him, but Arius' opponents heard catastrophe in that neat logic. Because if the Son is created, then worshipping him is worshipping something made. And if the church is worshipping something made, the church is wrong at its center. This is where the debate stops being a seminar and becomes a civil war. Bishops start writing letters like political manifestos. Cities form factions. Churches split. Authority fractures. And Constantine watches it the way a ruler watches a crack run through stone. Christianity is being invited into the empire and immediately behaves like a religion without a single agreed identity. So Constantine does what emperors do when they want an argument to stop. He summons the leaders not to chat but to decide. In 325 Anno Domini, they gather at Nicaea, hundreds of bishops representing the Christian world, and hovering over the whole meeting is an unspoken reality. The state is now in the room, not with a sermon, with leverage. That's the second dark truth. Nicaea wasn't just a theological council, it was theology under the shadow of empire. The core question is brutally simple. Is the Son created or uncreated? Created means he began. He came into existence by God's will. He is subordinate. Not eternal, not equal. Uncreated means no beginning, no before, eternal, sharing God's own being. Now you can feel why the Mary question becomes a trap. If Mary bore him, he begins, he's created. That seems obvious. So the Nicene side builds a scaffold to hold their claim. Jesus is truly born as a human from Mary, in time, killable, hungry, tired, bleeding. But the Son, as divine, exists before Mary, before time, uncreated. To them, Mary doesn't create God. God enters humanity through Mary. Whether you call that mystery or mechanics depends on your temperament, but it was their way of keeping both things true. Jesus is full humanity and Jesus is full divinity. And then Nicaea forges its blade. A single word hammered into the creed like a nail, homoousios, same essence, same substance, not similar to God, not almost God, not divine in a lower sense. The Son is of the same divine reality as the Father. With that word, the council chooses a winner, and now comes the part people try to ignore because it ruins the Holy Conference vibe. The losers are not merely corrected, they are exiled, removed, condemned, their writings suppressed, alliances break, careers end. Because once a creed becomes tied to imperial unity, disagreement becomes more than wrongness. It becomes disruption. That's the third dark truth. After Nicaea, Christianity doesn't just have doctrine, it has enforcement. Before this era, Christians could argue, separate, form different communities. After this era, heresy becomes something the state can help punish. A theological label starts behaving like a political charge. And yes, the debates continue for decades. Nicaea doesn't end the fight. It changes the fight's terrain. It turns beliefs into borders, and borders get defended. Now circle back to the question you asked at the beginning, why the sudden Roman interest, so much so they want to run it? Because Rome recognized something powerful. Christianity could either be a rival loyalty or an imperial tool. So Rome did what it always does with powerful tools. It picked it up. It didn't need to invent Christianity. It needed to shape which version of Christianity would dominate. That is why emperors start caring about creeds, not because they discovered theology, because they discovered that theology can stabilize an empire. Even colder, Nicaea is often described as clarity, truth, victorious, a holy milestone. But strip away the incense and look at the skeleton. A growing religion became useful to an empire. An empire demanded unity. A council produced a creed. A creed became a test of belonging, and belief began to travel with consequences. Nicaea didn't create the question, who is Jesus? It created a new question that has never stopped haunting the world. When faith becomes policy, who gets punished for thinking differently?